I'm Eric Schoenberg, Editor-in-Chief.
And I'm Jill Schlesinger, Editor-at-Large.
In today's Reality Check, we're talking about the Supreme Court, which this week heard a case, the issue of which, are you paying too much in mutual fund fees? Jones versus Harris Associates. The issue is, are people paying too much in mutual fund fees? Question is, how are these set? Now, in reality, mutual fund fees are set by the board of directors, and the fiction is that the directors act on behalf of the shareholders, negotiating with the mutual fund sponsor to set fees at a market rate, a kind of an arm's length negotiation. That's not how it really happens, though.
Well, what's interesting is the board is supposed to have a fiduciary duty to all of the people who are investing in the fund. And the question really is, how can one set of investors get one price and another set get a different price? So you and I invest in one of the Harris funds and we might pay 1%. But we find out that an institutional investor who puts piles of money in, like for a pension or for a big retirement plan, might pay half as much. So the question is, what's going on? Who is getting what fee and why are they so different? And who is acting on behalf of all shareholders?
Well, now it's interesting. It's not just the directors who have the fiduciary responsibility, it's the advisor too. So the advisor is supposed to bargain on its own behalf, but keep the shareholders' interests first. And that is a very important distinction because it means it's not really like a market rate. Everyone is supposed to be acting on behalf of the shareholders, which makes the lower rate that the advisors charge institutions a little suspicious, and that's why we have this case.
And what's interesting is that the case brings up a broader question, which is so many people use mutual funds, trillions of dollars invested, but very few understand what the cost of owning that fund is. So the guy who is arguing on behalf of the mutual fund company says, hey, you know what, if they're not happy with their fees, let them just go trot across the street and go buy an index fund. And I think the problem has always been that investors have a hard time deciphering what the cost of owning a fund is. And we've never really come through the process of the mutual fund scandal of 2003 with a clear way to understand the cost of owning a fund.
Court decisions have said in the past that it's okay if the fee is in line with other fees for similar funds. But because people don't really pay attention to it, the market, in this case, is not a very good determinant of what's a fair fee. The fees are set by boards of directors who are kind of in league with the advisor, and as a result, there's this discrepancy between fees that institutions pay and fees that retail shareholders pay, and that seems, on the face of it, to suggest that what retail investors pay is too high.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the problem, again, is that we don't know what's going to happen with the Supreme Court ruling. I have in my belly the sense that it's not going to go the way of the regular old investor. And I'm sort of disheartened by that because I feel like the little guy just doesn't have any power in this argument. And it was such a bold case to take before the Supreme Court. And I fear that the outcome is going to be so dissatisfying. And we aren't any further along in helping people understand how they pay. And you know what? If everyone were rational, they'd go out and buy an index fund.
Oh, that's right, where fees are about 10 or 20 basis points, 10 or 20 hundredths of a percentage point as opposed to 1 or 1.5 percentage points for a usual actively managed mutual fund.
So our takeaway is it's a great case, it's interesting. My fear is nothing happens. Where do you come out on it?
Well, I think that on the side of the little shareholder there is a very powerful legal thinker in Richard Posner who let's hope that his thinking prevails. And that is your reality check.